You're listening to Australia's national youth radio station, Triple J. For more info, go to triplej.net.au.
Hello, Father Bob.
Yes, sir. Present.
Any skateboarders around your church?
No skateboarders.
Going up and down the aisle?
The aisle of the church. That's what I thought. We've put bumps. We've got bumps. As you remember, Pirelli rubber floor mats, so they wouldn't go too well in them.
Now, there were some nasty skateboarders who... where were they? Which church?
Yeah, St Patrick's Cathedral, which is, for those of overseas listeners, is the Central Roman Catholic Church in Melbourne,
and
Australia.
A dean? Was
deacon?
A deacon?
The dean is a Roman title given to the bloke who runs the cathedral precinct.
And he was caught on YouTube swearing at these skateboarders.
12 months ago, apparently the kiddies stirred him up, Jeffrey, and that's his name, Jeffrey.
Yes.
And he did assert himself.
He did.
But as I said in my note that I hand-delivered to him on the day that the media was hounding him...
Ooh.
I dragged myself from my own church on Sunday morning, went to town feeling a sense of solidarity with Jeffrey.
Really?
And I said, if they were Japanese tourists, Jeffrey,
yes,
you would have spoken Japanese. They were skateboarders and you spoke the skateboard dialect.
Yes.
And that's what language is all about, Jeffrey.
Yes, but it's like...
Down but nothing. This is the left-wing pinko bullshit that you're going to come out with. I'm going to defend the clergy now against all odds.
Against the skateboarders. I thought it was a bit... I thought the big crime was being so cornball. Imagine being a bunch of skateboarders and going, let's hassle a priest. Like, what is this, The Simpsons or something?
Yeah,
I
think it is.
How much more cornball could you get? How less original could you get than being a skateboarder kind of going, let's hassle a priest?
Yeah, but still, again, it was the filth. A lady rang up before I came on the program crying that a priest could use such language. See what I mean? Where has she been?
I think it's kind of like some version of live by the sword, die by the sword. I think if you kind of set yourself... Like if you're a skateboarder and you're starting to really nudge, poke, you kind of got to expect a bit of blowback.
Well, they do it to themselves, you see. But then this bloke's 60 and he should... they said, well, he's carrying on as though he was a teenager.
It's a bit like anarchists at a protest. They kind of go, anarchy!
Exactly.
And then they push and push,
right? Push.
And then the policeman hits them on the head with a baton. And it's like,
Exactly.
And it's like, hang on, I thought you're for anarchy.
Yeah. Well,
the policeman was saying, no, you're right, let's have anarchy, and he popped you over the head with a baton.
I wish it wasn't us. I wish it was an Anglican married with children, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because then anything he said would be taken as being a parental thing, whereas Michael Carr Gregg, the adolescent expert psychologist, took a swipe not only at Jeffrey and said, oh, no, that's no good, he's speaking like a tantruming teenager himself, but he then took a swipe at my friend Tomlinson, who runs the administration. Got 2 priests for the price of 1, girls and boys.
Boring.
By the way, all of them up there must talk that language. See? As soon as you go across the thing, I'm going to hang a sign on the cathedral fence saying, don't worry about the dog. It's the owner you have to worry about.
Is that God?
That is
the
clerical staff of the cathedral. What's on next? We've got this marvellous interview that you're going to conduct on your own. On your own.
Tonight's show, inadvertently, I promise you it's inadvertently, every last guest is hovering around the theme of censorship.
Yeah, and dissent.
Yeah. We have Simon Hackett. He's going to be talking. He's a CEO of a national broadband company. He's going to be...
Oh, nodes and...
You
do. You chose this deliberately to knock me out.
I don't know anything about that.
You do. You're on it all the time.
I'm talking about the culture. I want to know if... Anyway, I don't want to burn my questions now. Just keep on listening. It'll be interesting enough.
3 pages of bloody notes here. I don't know how I'm supposed to read them.
We're going to be speaking to Mary Zournazi.
Oh, that's better. Shut up and sing.
She's going to be talking about the new Dixie Chicks documentary, Shut Up and Sing, which is all about them dissing Bush.
Yes, which you saw the film. You saw it.
We then are going to be talking to a Canadian filmmaker, Debbie Melnyk. She's done a film called Manufacturing Dissent.
Yes.
Guess what that's about? She follows around Michael Moore.
Oh, I knew you were going to get Michael Moore.
Follows about Michael Moore.
Yeah, you'll get Michael Moore.
and tries to have a go at him. Try to have a go at him.
Yeah.
I saw the documentary. I thought it was too sophisticated. It was because it was talking about his propaganda techniques and his editing techniques and all that kind of stuff. When I really reckon the whole thing should have more fat jokes.
Yes.
I reckon it just basically should have been playing out on him
completely,
for being fat.
demythologised. So he's no threat to your conspiracy theories.
And then we're going to be talking about smoking.
Why smoking? You know
what? We're going to be talking to a
Professor Weston Bate, who's the fellow, counsellor and former president of the Royal Historical Society of Victoria.
We're just going to be finding out when did smoking become socially unacceptable? We once had talkback here, and we once had talkback. This was a couple of years ago, and people were ringing us going, I was in high school in 1978, and like the Year 12 kids, we used to be able to smoke in the Year 12 room.
That's right. See? And that was to remove the boy odours.
How stupid why can't they come up with a cigarette that is addictive, but
no smoke,
but healthy? Why can't they do that? They can do lots of things.
They've got a thing now which doesn't have any smoke.
A thing.
They have.
They don't have a thing.
I've seen an advertisement for it that says you light this thing and it doesn't have any smoke.
They don't have a thing.
God, they don't.
I think the whole world would have heard of this thing.
And the plane didn't fly into the Pentagon. Come on.
We're talking more after this.
Josh Pike with the Forever song from the album Memories and Dust. Johnny?
Reading in the Melbourne Herald Sun about people who are on Jamie Oliver's restaurant show. You know, when they got the...
Yeah, I got one of them.
What do you mean you got one of them?
One of those girls.
And so and apparently they appeared on the show, but some of them have...
they've allegedly relapsed.
And they're blaming Jamie Oliver. Apparently it's Jamie Oliver's fault that... I don't know. I don't know if you like...
No, you don't like all this kind of stuff. You see, you promote the kiddies and say, we will save you, and then the kiddies come and say, save us, and then after a while, their previous lifestyle grabs them by the throat and prevents them from being able to do occupational or employment things. So you can't like Benny Cousins in Western Australia, Jono. You get rid of the drug out of the system. You've got to get rid of the mentality. But the kiddies haven't got rid of the mentality, so they slip into... This is what it was before. Oh, I know. Look, you'd have them all shot. That's what you want to do. I want to save them all.
This is a letter to the editor from Marg Sneddon in The Age. In response to gollywogs out of place, I am a golly collector and was invited to speak on Triple J to John Safran and Father Bob a few years ago. Why did she put that detail in?
Well, she needed to make it respectable.
On the subject of gollywogs, and racism. I'm also a member, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she's basically standing up for gollywogs.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting because you, of course, were ridiculing the whole thing as being racist.
No,
and I didn't realise that the gollywog per se is black.
What, you just thought...
I thought gollywogs were neutral.
Ah, yeah, I can understand
that. And then
that.
you started to pontificate on bloody albino gollywogs or something. You see what I mean? So I was glad of that, because that was one of your deepest interviews.
With a
gollywog.
Oh, yeah, I used to be pro-golly.
You've gone off that now.
I think perhaps on Jeff McMullen's difference of opinion, they should dedicate a week to the gollywog debate.
I think they couldn't have a gollywog in each seat.
It'll be me and Margaret Sneddon on one side.
Who is our producer, by the way?
You could come dressed as a gollywog or something.
Is not our producer called Sneddon? Ah. Is this a conspiracy? Huh?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, he's one of ours. No, it's not Sneddon, it's all a Scadden. So there you are. The gollywogs have gone the way of all flesh. But now we're going to get into one of these deep and meaningful discussions that you're going to lead.
About...
Should we thank the USA for the internet?
No, not just about that. I want to know if you can take it down. Everyone says it's like omnipotent or something. There must be something. You must be able to like blow up a satellite or something. Anyway, we're going to.
Well, you can rip the fibres channels out of the ocean, as the earthquake did.
We're going to find out from Simon Hackett, who knows all about these things, how me and Osama bin Laden can bring the internet down.
That's from Sydney, Q and Not You, with wonderful people from the album Power.
Thank you, Father Bob. This is Triple J. I'm John Safran. And part one of our 4-part special today, for some reason, everything is about censorship and dissent. All our guests, we have Simon Hackett. Hello, from Adelaide.
Hello, how are you?
How are you?
I'm very good. John, how are you?
It says here you were involved with the internet since well before it was trendy.
Indeed, at least in the Australian part of it.
Now, I need to know lots of things about the internet, and I don't know where to begin.
Okay.
It's like a series of tubes, John. Didn't you know that?
Now, first of all, this is what I'm getting at, Simon. This is going to be really convoluted, it's sort of like I need you to answer something.
Shoot.
Okay. Now, is America totally responsible for the internet? And by America, I mean like the American government, not necessarily this American government, but, previous administrations and American capitalism. Have they totally facilitated the internet and the World Wide Web?
They haven't totally facilitated it, but they are absolutely responsible for the seeds of it that led to the ability for the rest of it to grow. There was some money put in 30 years ago by the Defence Advanced Research Projects Agency in the US, and it went to government. It went to university researchers, and that was the cool aspect, really to research how to build a survivable computer network. And they obviously had defence projects in mind, and they had this really cool idea that is the reason why the internet's grown so well. They wanted to build a network with no single point of failure, and so they gave that to a set of people as a research project, and that's what they built. They built a computer network that has no individual spot you can knock off the map and lose the rest of the network.
So American government money
actually did something useful.
Yes.
But what it did was form that catalyst. They were trying to solve a problem for defence, right? Picture a missile defence system where it didn't matter which city the Russians bombed, the other ones were still working. But it led to a network where anyone can bolt into the side of it and there's no off switch, which is incredibly cool.
Can you really, there's no way to shut down the internet?
Not in totality. The trick here is that each key part of the internet knows where it is in the internet and knows where its neighbours are. And if you just magically took a knife and cut the internet in two, both halves would continue to function perfectly, apart from not being able to reach the other half, but they would function perfectly. And you can keep doing that. You could keep cutting pieces off, and each piece that you cut off still works and can still grow by itself. And when you rejoin them, they gain access to everything again. It's designed to be that survivable.
So just say in like 40 years' time, 50 years' time, America, there's a coup, maybe Hugo Chavez comes in, or maybe just a slippery slope and we suddenly have a fascist government in the United States. Can they do anything? Could they do anything to shut down the internet?
They can mess up their own nest, but they can't shut the rest of it down. So if they cut themselves off from the internet, the rest of the internet would keep functioning. That's the beauty. And what this is a sort of the DNA of this, the way this works, the computer protocols are all open standards. They are really the first version of what these days people call open source. And so the way to make the internet work is public information, and every part of it works independently of the other. So if the US cut itself off, the rest of the internet right around it.
Isn't there some satellite up there that like just say you're like Al Qaeda and you're like going, we really want to cause a lot of problems. Is there just anything we can do? Oh, sorry, I mean Al Qaeda. Can they blow up some satellite or something?
They can do damage of a temporary nature. There are various ways to damage bits of the internet in a temporary way, by which I mean to cause what's called a denial of service attack, to make it unavailable for a while in a chunk of it. But the internet is built with lots and lots of interconnections. Those tubes you mentioned, Bob, there's a lot of them. And in general, between any two spots on the internet, there's a lot of them. And what the internet does is each router, each device at a switching point, if it loses a connection, it takes the next best one, and it does so automatically and it does so immediately. So if you cut it off, as soon as you re-establish a connection, even via a very circuitous path, literally right around the world, it'll start using that path.
Now,
it's a very smart system.
Going from just a little in-house thing for all the computer geeks to taking the universe by storm, how much is American capitalism responsible for that? Like things like Microsoft and Bill Gates.
Yeah. Oh, it's still substantially responsible for it in the sense that the capitalist-driven use of intellectual property to generate technology outcomes, the whole Silicon Valley thing, that hothouse is what's responsible for a lot of the developments that led to the internet being able to grow, that led to software systems and computer hardware that exists that's fast enough to make it to be able to grow with it. Without that research and without those commercial outcomes, the routers, the things that hold the internet together, wouldn't still be able to keep up with the demand. So we've got an awful lot to thank them for in that respect, along with an awful lot to complain about. But the great thing here is it all works on a substrate that's open in terms of the knowledge that it uses. So if you don't like product A, you can run product B. It all still keeps working.
Now, what's this ICANN thing that people get to hand out the web addresses and stuff like that?
Right. In any system like this, you do need some coordination of literally allocating numbers. The same notion of allocating numbers for anything else, whether it's to a driver's license or a cat license or whatever. So everyone needs their own distinct identity, their own distinct number on the internet, a thing called an internet address. And ICANN, at its root, is responsible for allocating and handing out those numbers. So it's the allocation authority.
Okay, so what
peels them off and
what
hands them
happens
out.
if terrorists go in and they bomb the ICANN building and kill everyone from ICANN? What's going to happen?
Yeah, it turns out nothing unrepairable. All the things they've handed out already keep working. So what you would lose in the very short term is the ability for someone new to connect like a new major node to connect to the internet. But in practice, even ICANN distributed itself years ago. They take chunks of address ranges, chunks of numbers they hand out, and they in turn hand them out to registries in each major geographic area. So there's an Asia-Pacific thing called APNIC that hands out those numbers in Asia-Pacific.
And ICANN, by what legislative means are they the people who are in charge of all of this? Who designates them that power?
That's a really good question, and that has been the subject of some confusion up to and including US government levels, because it turns out that ICANN is seeded from a voluntary organisation. Its roots really come down to a thing called the Internet Society and a set of working groups that it spawned, including a thing called the Internet Engineering Task Force. And these are guys and girls that literally just got together of their own volition
Were they
sort
Americans?
out the standards to make this work. They started out being Americans because the Internet started out only being in America, but these days it's extremely international. And these guys and girls go through the processes of how this stuff should work, and they decided that they needed to have enough coordination to hand these out in a rational way. What then happened, and that was all done voluntarily with no money changing hands. And then what happens is what usually happens, John, which is that as soon as something gets popular enough, government decides it wants to own it. And so there was an exercise gone through where the US government tried in effect to nationalise it and to say, you can't possibly self-organise that, we must somehow be in charge of you. And it kind of doesn't work in this case, which is really quite cool.
And what about, I heard the UN were trying to get involved, saying that this whole ICANN thing, it is too American and it should go to a more general worldly body.
Right, and in the end of the day, it doesn't actually matter a whole lot. The system is so distributed that what ICANN does at the root of that tree is just generate seeds that other regions then do their own work below. So while they're nominally in charge of it at the top, if they went feral in some way, another head would pop up on top of that tree and fill the gap very easily. Their disappearance is not fatal, and what they do at a policy level is not fatal to the internet either. So the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers was set up, ICANN, was set up to try to formalise this process a bit, because after 30 years they thought maybe they should pretend to be organised. But that's about all. It doesn't take a huge amount of organisation to hold this together. It was designed to be survivable.
And so there's no tipping point in which the internet becomes ineffective? For example, just say, okay, it's 60 years' time, and
no, there can be.
We've been taken over by a fundamentalist caliphate. And so they've taken over England, and so they've closed it down in England. And I don't know, they've closed it down over Europe. Is there any point in which it's going to stop, even in 100 years' time?
Yeah, there's a 20-year-old phrase that I think it's 20 years old that's applicable here, saying in the internet aphorism, which is, the internet interprets censorship as damage and routes around it. And this is exactly what it does do. If you shut down a part of it, the rest of it just ringbarks it, works straight around it. So Australia could cut itself off, England could cut itself off, China, more applicably, could cut itself off, but the rest of the internet keeps going. And when they decide to get back with the program, the rest of the internet is there ready to plug back into them again. And again, as I said earlier, if you bifurcate it, the two halves keep working. It's a very smart, very survivable system. It does have scaling limits. There are definitely issues about it scaling to a planet. But it turns out that the internet, the IETF and the other people working on these protocols, myself included some time back, have designed a successor protocol to deal with the scaling issues called IPv6, and that's in the process of being rolled out. And that's just a scaling thing. That's just making sure the beast can handle being bigger. It's just technical adjustments to make sure of that. But the thing in general is just super survivable.
And what about governments being able to censor it? How effective is that, like in China, in Cuba, all those kind of places? Is in reality, are there just ways to weave around it if you're living in that country and you've got a modem?
Yes, exactly. That's the beauty. You can, and China's an example of this. There's a tendency for some governments to want to, A, say that there's only one connection to the rest of the internet and we, the government, will control it. And then, absolutely, you can control stuff that flows through that interface, through that tube, Bob.
Yes.
But the tubes are all over the place. And so a dial-up modem, a satellite phone, a cell phone, a pair of wireless LAN radios shooting over the Great Wall. There's a whole lot of ways to bust around the central control. And because the internet is designed to support an arbitrary number of those connections in existence, as soon as you punch a second one out, it'll start using that instead. It's a nifty system. So what you can do is you can officially censor with extreme effectiveness. But like most things in life, unofficially, if you want to get round that, you can. And the only way you can stop that is by taking people's computers away. Because, I don't know if you've heard, but they have the internet on computers now.
Oh, yes, John.
Yes.
Simon Hackett.
By the way, is this question going to be interesting to the listeners, or is it just you trying to show off that
I'm trying to show off that I'm that's beyond...
I've got to apologise, Simon. It's because he's old, he thinks like the kids are going to think he's cool if he drops like some language. Yes,
the nodes.
Anyway, okay, so say something self-serving.
About the real bloody world. If this man is surfing all the time in cyberspace, why does he go gliding at the weekend?
Oh, because the real world is still the point of the exercise at the end of the day. And
it
really
connects me to the world in which I live. Now, you're talking about the real world.
And it connects you, more importantly, directly and indirectly at all sorts of levels to other human beings. And it remains the great... Yeah, and it remains the great victory of the thing. And social networking websites are kind of this year's version of it, but email has been doing this for 25 years.
So my little social activist blog is an essential part of the global social network.
Well, what it allows is for groups of people to exchange thoughts and to get a critical mass of those thoughts together in a way that geography used to prevent. And so I'm on mailing lists that discuss things about gliding because I'm very passionate about gliding.
Yeah. So I've been thrown out now. So
in summary,
there you go.
American money and the American government have facilitated...
American defence budget money.
Has facilitated the greatest way ever in the history of the universe to disseminate dissent about the American government, against the American government and against globalisation and against capitalism.
Ain't it a thing of beauty? The cool thing is the computers themselves don't care about the politics.
Excellent. Thank you very much for explaining that to me, Simon Hackett.
My pleasure.
From the US of A, electrons with a dirty basement.
I don't believe Simon. I reckon there's a way. Some listener must know a way to bring down the internet. Like, for example, just say Al-Qaeda got together with the Russians and sent a rocket into... Isn't there some sort of like thing they can shoot, like a satellite or something out of the sky that's going to...
He said no.
If you know how to bring down the internet, even theoretically...
What?
Just go to triplej.net.au/Safran. Don't bring it down straight away. Go to the guest book and type it in and send it via the internet before you bring down the internet. I'm thinking of the future. You live in the now. Things change. I want to know what's going to happen in 100 years.
Yeah, well, what'll happen in 100 years is whatever you do to make it happen.
Now, why didn't you tell me that Dracula was a good book?
Of course it's a good book.
I started reading it because I've started working with someone whose ancestry is...
Transylvanian.
Well, not quite, but maybe their parents were that kind of Bulgarian, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it's not like I just stereotype. Like, it's like, oh, if you're from there, you must be a vampire, right? But I did notice working with this person that, like, subconsciously, you know how people doodle in the margins and stuff?
Yes.
She, like, doodles, like, these little, like,
fangs.
She's very superstitious, not fangs, like little iconography, religious iconography, and she's very superstitious, does things with her fingers and stuff like that. So I thought, and I know nothing about this.
All of that.
I know nothing about this, so I thought I thought I'd go back to the source and read Dracula.
The original Dracula.
Yeah, before moving on to the more...
Later,
I imagine...
embellishments of Dracula.
Yes, I imagine everything's going to refer back to that. So yeah, they really knew how to write in the day, didn't they?
Yeah, there must have been some
I mean, obviously it's nothing compared to a Wikipedia entry and the fine artistry in one of those, but it's still pretty good. Now, people were asking us how come we were being so cocky and starting to have goes at listeners and people at the guest books, right? Yeah. This is how I don't think things through. This is how I so don't think things through, right? And, like, I reckon subconsciously, and this is just purely subconsciously, part of the reason was that, as you know, Father Bob, if you walk in, they've really amped up the security here.
They have. I couldn't get in before, and he said, take the other door.
It's amazing. It's like, there's everything short of robot guards now guarding the ABC building. So I reckon subconsciously that sort of got into my head. Like, I'm not saying I was actually, we're totally safe in here. But then this is how I didn't think it through, right? Remember how for the last 2 weeks we've kind of had a go at John Fain, DJ from ABC local radio? It didn't really occur to me that, well, he'd be inside the building, if you know what I mean. So whilst it's okay to slag off people that are on the other side of the robot guards, he's going to be on the same side as the robot guards and the security as me, and I bumped into him about an hour ago.
He could be brandishing a nutcracker.
He said to me, he's going, oh, John, I heard you've been talking about me on the radio.
Oh.
And he did that passive-aggressive thing where he tried to be cool. He goes, oh, I love it. Or he goes, but then he goes, like, I didn't hear it. I don't know what it was. You know, like he tried to sort of hurt my feelings. He tried to hurt my feelings by saying, like, you know, like he not only didn't he hear the specifics, but he can't even be bothered. He doesn't really care or whatever.
He doesn't have to care, really. What about Richard Stubbs? You don't want to have a go at him?
Richard Stubbs? I once worked with him.
Did you? Red Simons? You're not going to have a go at him?
I once... Well, with the thing about Red Simons, these are all radio DJs at ABC Local. And the thing about Red Simons, he has... You know, like, usually people in the public eye have, except for, like, Paris Hilton or whatever, they have some sense of, like, they want to wear the baseball cap.
Like Molly.
The peak down. No, they want to wear the peak down, or they want to wear...
to hide themselves from the public.
Yeah, at the very least, they try to have some semblance of humility or whatever. Yeah, Red Simons isn't like that. I was once walking down... I can't remember with it. I think
probably Carlisle Street in Balaclava, I would think.
And he was in his four-wheel drive, and he saw me, and he screams out. He goes, "Hey, John Safran! It's Red Simon!" And the whole street, I'm cringing. I put a second baseball cap over my original baseball cap. I'm sure I've got some...
Oh, dear.
I'm going to have to dig my head for a little any goss on Richard Stubbs. I did work with him on a flop Channel 7 show.
Well, I'm going to try and get on his show for 5 minutes with a friend of mine who's invented something. That's all. I'm not going to say nothing. All right?
Yeah. Okay.
So don't say anything about Red Simons or Richard Stubbs before I get on for 5 minutes with a man who's invented something.
I understand. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about the new Dixie Chick documentary.
Yeah.
Shut Up and Sing.
5 stars it got. 4 stars. The Saturday Nights, Motorin, from the album Saturday Nights. What else?
This is Triple J. I'm John Safran. That's Father Bob Maguire. Joining us is film reviewer, but, you know, she knows stuff because she's a philosopher and writer too. So she's not like one of those, like, movie show SBS people with this spiky hair chewing bubblegum.
No, none of that.
With face piercings or whatever.
She knows things.
She knows things, and she can give a review that...
It's got some substance to it.
Mary Zournazi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you very much. Thank you for the intro. I'm not sure it can have a huge amount of substance, but we'll see.
Now, the film you saw was a political film, Shut Up and Sing, a documentary about the Dixie Chicks. Give us the lowdown.
Well, the lowdown is, most people may have heard of it at some point, but the lead singer, Natalie Main, in 2003, said that she was ashamed that the president came from Texas, which was her hometown.
In a concert?
And what was that?
In a concert?
In a concert, yeah, in London. In London, yes. Indeed. And it was the Top of the World tour, their Top of the World tour. And from there was, a kind of total backlash to the Dixie Chicks. But the film, I think, is really about the American dream turning into a sort of nightmare, because they were beautiful girls, all American, wholesome, and all of a sudden they're being targeted, a bit like the kind of Dracula, blood-sucking from the general public,
I can understand that cultural reference point, because I'm up to page 111 in
111?
Yeah, in Dracula.
Yeah. So it's a film, it's interesting, it's a film made by women as well, by a director called Barbara Koppel, and Celia Peck, who, by the way, is apparently Gregory Peck's, daughter. So that's a sort of little interesting bit of information. Yeah, in case you didn't know. But she really made this film not so much to sort of foreground the political, but it is, of course, in a way, a political film, but to really look at the impact on their lives and their relationships, their families, and in a way, it was really about the human spirit, actually, and in a strange way, believe it or not, it's about American values.
Now,
you might ask what that is, what they are, actually.
No, I daren't ask what they are. The manifest destiny.
Now, I can't fault this film creatively. I think it's a total success in what it's out to achieve. It's one of those films where you can say, well, they were out to achieve this, the filmmakers, and they got it. They got it right. But I thought some of the themes in the film were kind of interesting, and because it was about censorship, but there were so many tangles within it. Like, for example, they're hugely successful, which made them hugely powerful people. So there's the opening scene of the film is the Dixie Chicks reading these a right-wing blog, and sort of like being outraged that they're how outrageous, there's this right-wing blog and they're attacking us, and sort of like in their heads it was like, we're the little guys, we're the anti-Bush we're the anti-Bush Dixie Chicks, and then the pro-Bush bloggers are attacking us. So on like one level you can look at it and say, well, the power dynamic is the anti-Bush Dixie Chicks versus the pro-Bush bloggers. But then on the other way of looking at it exactly the same time, it's the Dixie Chicks signed to Sony Columbia Records with unbelievable money and power, having not enough self-awareness to kind of go, well,
how can you do both?
Well, they're bagging some guy who's like some little guy who's sitting on his computer over in Massachusetts or whatever.
Yeah, look, I think there is a little scope there for a bit of cynicism, and I think you're right. In a way, they did have so much power, and they were megastars at that point. But I think they do address that in a way that they're in the film, that they're their own kind of marketing brand in a way, because Lipton Tea was the great supporter of the Top of the World tour where this event happened, and within weeks they literally kind of pulled out.
That's one of the fantastic scenes in the film is where was he from Lipton Tea?
Yeah,
or was he the middleman from Lipton Tea? This whole film, the best bits of it are, because it's like Spinal Tap, except the real Spinal Tap, and having that Lipton Tea representative talk in this kind of convoluted weasel word marketing language, trying to work out how maybe the Dixie Chicks can get themselves out of this trouble with George Bush, so therefore Lipton Tea can still sponsor them.
That's right, and it is a classic moment. But you see that they stand it all throughout the film. Natalie sort of stood up for it. She said, "Well, maybe we'll let you off the hook. You don't have to sort of endorse us anymore." So, I think the film I found actually was a really wonderful film in terms of the power of women. It might sound strange, but I think that all of because it was made by women, there's this real sort of sensitivity to the issues that were affecting their lives, like how it impacted on their family. I mean, Emily gave birth to twins in the middle of all of this, but they're good role models, actually, I think, for younger women, because I found that, the idea of having a family and being successful, all these things are actually quite good and that they stood up for what they believed in. So if you need role models, I think they're actually very good ones. And the film achieved that.
Did you think there was a layer to it where they were all saying, we're going to stick by Natalie? She's the troublemaker, wasn't she? We're going to stick by her. And so on a veneer, on the surface level, it's like, hey, even though times are tough, we're all sticking together. But wasn't there still on a deeper level, like, it was in self-interest to stick together, because even a sort of like downsized or downgraded Dixie chick was still going to be a bigger money earner than going their own separate ways. And like, especially, I guess, outside the three women, like the manager and the people on their kind of entourage, even a downsized, downgraded Dixie chicks, it was still in their self-interest to kind of try to make the thing work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true, but I also think that there was.
I guess what I'm getting at is I would have liked to have seen everyone who was stick together when, like, really the stakes were totally, like, they were going to be out on the street with no money or whatever. That would have been the real test of their solidarity and their friendship, rather than, we're going to earn $20 million this year as opposed to $200 million this year.
Yeah, I get what you mean, but I think, there was a moment in the opening part of the film where I think it's Marty Maguire says, well, when somebody asks me, I'm going to say that I didn't say it. It was, kind of Natalie, in a sort of joking, but I think probably she sort of meant it at that time. But I think the stakes were really, it was about loss of money and all that kind of thing. But what became stronger, and I think this is where the film has a lot of value, is it is about sort of loyalty. It's all about the things actually that they were being accused of, like, being sort of traitors and betrayers and, anti-American and all of this. But in fact, they were courageous, fearless and loyal. I mean, yeah, look, they make a lot of money, but at the same time, I think that what they're bringing forward are these good characteristics that are a part of the American way of life, if you like, and they brought it together. And, of course, capitalism's part of that too. So, we have to kind of give them a bit of leeway, I reckon. What do you reckon, Father Bob?
I'm just interested in whether freedom of speech is, in fact, the American way of life. That's what I was brought up to believe.
It's meant to be.
I think more so than when you were a kiddie, because... I mean, that's the other aspect of, like, people have freedom of speech in America, and then how much should you have freedom to make millions and millions of dollars? So, like,
so that's a different issue for us.
If the Dixie Chicks were kicked off Sony and lost the Lipton contract, they'd still be able to upload their next album.
But American folklore is full about those people who make the sacrifice for freedom of speech. I'm just wondering whether on this side of the ocean, in Australia... That's so highly prized.
But I was getting at this before about this film, that there was always like two sides to it, because a lot of the people criticising the Dixie Chicks and kind of getting together, I mean, there's an aspect where you've got to say, well, that's their right, and it's like, well, if lefties are always talking about, hey, let's boycott to try to affect a change, let's try to get some people power, you kind of like, there's the other side of the coin is that if sincerely all these working class country music lovers in America object to her and don't like what she said, why can't they get together and have a boycott?
Look, I think that's true, and I think that whole thing, sure, everybody's got freedom of speech, and they should have in that ideal sort of sense. But it kind of entered another league, I think, when they started getting death threats and stuff like this. When it starts to kind of turn into real hatred, which is what I think you saw. I think it sort of enters another league, But
do you stop then? That's what I'm interested in. When you get death threats and all the rest of it, and you're a champion of some cause, have you got to stop? I mean, I know common sense says you've got to stop, especially if you're a mother with children. But have you got to stop, you see, or does the rest of the human race, which stands and applauds you in a film, if you don't stop?
Yes.
And you keep going. You see, what the hell do you do? I don't know, because I'd love to talk out about lots of things. It's beyond me now. But, I mean, if I did, I'd be, I'd have to put up with all this business about being unpatriotic and all the rest of it.
Well, that's where I think their courage comes in, actually.
Yeah.
Because...
Now, the women got it in spades over us blokes. That's what I'm interested in too.
Well, I think that they do, and I think they do in terms of the Dixie Chicks themselves. But I reckon we've got to give credit to the filmmakers too, But I have to say that this idea of freedom of speech, it was Roosevelt in 1941 who said that on the eve of their Americans' involvement in the Second World War, that freedom of speech and freedom from fear were two of his four key freedoms, and that sort of sense of the president sort of actually endorsing it in that sort of way seems to have been lost. But the film, I think, is actually quite an amazing social document too, in that it shows the progression of the war at the same time, the way it was built up, how public sentiment changed, and the way, I suppose, the Dixie Chicks just kept holding their ground. They weren't going to... They did apologise for offending, but they never apologised for being against the war and violence. So I think, that to me is about values. So that's why I think the film is actually quite successful. Although I do think I got a bit confused when they went between 2003 and 2005 and 2006. It wasn't a straight chronological film in that sense, yeah.
And also, if you hate their music, it doesn't matter, because it's only 30 seconds here, 15 seconds there.
That's right.
7
but
seconds
I have to tell you, I actually really enjoyed. I mean, I'd never really been a fan, nor had I heard a lot of the Dixie Chicks before, which might be the experience for a lot of people, actually, because I think you should go see the film just because it is a really important sort of social document, I reckon, of a particular time in American history, and power, money, all of that sort of, involved in that. And I think it's just a kind of wonderful thing for those reasons,
Thank you very much, Mary, for telling us all about this. Thanks. I assume being highbrow, you wouldn't lower yourself to giving, stars or anything like that.
I reckon I'd give it stars.
Oh, you
I'd
would?
Give it stars, yeah. I'd give it stars.
I overestimated you.
Give it 4?
You did?
Yes.
4 stars?
What would you give it, John? What would you give it?
Oh, I think it's almost 100% successful in what they're trying to achieve. So then it's just a matter of whether it's your cup of tea, with reference to Lipton. But no, and I like that kind of documentary. So I don't know. I just thought it was great. I'm not going to give it stars.
5 stars.
I'm higher brow than you, Mary. I can just say I really like something without
having to
lowering
give stars.
it. Yes.
Well, I'd give it 4.5 and 3/4.
Oh, very nice. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mary.
Margaret Fly with Work It Out from the album Grand Dance.
Father Bob, this is Triple J. Let's go to the guest book. Bitter Smith fan. I was talking about how come my liking of the Smiths was in inverse to how Smiths fans perceive them. Smiths fans they started off good, got worse and worse and worse. With me, they started off banal and got better and better and better. Oh. You're mad! The Smiths' latest stuff doesn't even compare to their earlier stuff. You probably like Morrissey's solo stuff. Talk about pretentious. Has nothing without Johnny Marr. Yeah, by the way, she's right. I do like Morrissey's solo stuff.
She picked you in one.
Anyway, their in-between stuff is the best. Have you heard The Queen is Dead? Genius. Actually, I thought The Queen is Dead. I think it's a semantic issue here. I thought that was their latest stuff. But she's saying...
Old.
Yes. So what she's saying is their latest stuff.
No good.
No, what I'm saying is the latest stuff. She's saying is their earlier stuff. So we can agree.
You're confused, actually, both of yous.
A mate of mine emailed me a question last night regarding a comment that your father, that's my father,
yes,
Alex Safran, made. Anyway, cut to the chase. My father said a Yiddish expression, and they want to know what it means. My father said, no, my father didn't say guns a la toys, va. My father said gumzel la toiva. And they're having a fight about that because they've been going through old Hebrew and Yiddish scriptures.
Yes.
They've been going through the Dead Sea Scrolls and stuff like that in museums. They're trying to find out, crack the code of what my father said. Gumzel la toiva. Oh, my God, it just means everything's for the best.
Yeah,
Gumzel la toiva.
It doesn't sound like that, but that's what it means.
So, for example, if I was to come over there and snap your arm...
Yes, I'd say Gumzel la toiva.
Yeah, in the short term, it's like... pain and infection.
But in the long run,
gangrene.
Everything will work out all right.
Yes, and you're on your back because you're so old. That would take you out probably for 9 months.
Futile care, they'd just put me in the rubbish tin.
But I'd...
Damsel Latoiva.
Yes.
I like that now.
I'd be able to drop it off whilst you're there, whilst you're lying there with the breathing apparatus, because... and you're in the oxygen tent in the hospital. Turning purple. I'll turn up there with my copy of the Kabbalah Zohar and then point you to the bit where it tells us, Gamza Latoiva. Everything's for the best.
I like that. Always look on the bright side of life.
Another thing I have to talk about is, do you know, because if there's a religious Jewish woman, I can't be left alone with her, especially, and it's weirdly...
Truly, I don't know that.
Weirdly, especially if she's married, no matter how kind of, on a surface level, illogical it is. So, for example, she's a bit older, so it's sort of like, if you were to walk into the room, you'd say, what are the chances of John feeling frisky and wanting to bust a move on that 56-year-old babushka?
All right.
In the...
Russian doll
in the
suit.
in the dress. Right. Where, like, no matter... It doesn't matter.
The rating. It doesn't matter whether that would be 8 out of 10.
Yes. You're not allowed to...
I didn't know that.
I can't be left alone. And I'm really sensitive about this.
With any Jewish woman...
Well, religious. If they're religious enough...
How do you know whether they're religious? Do they wear badges or something? Well, you would know.
I know.
You would
I just know. My Chabadda, which is a bit like Judah, which is a bit like Gaydar.
Yes.
Which is a bit like Radar.
Or Buddha.
Yes. But this is what happened. When I went over, I told you how I went to the Shabbos lunch, not with Sir Zalman Cohen's son.
No.
This was another one with a man called Pinchas. And he invited me to his lunch, and it's all kind of fine or whatever. Then I go to sit down, because I'm like looking in the cabinet, and their kids have got like these trophies, but they're the bogus ones. Everyone's got a trophy these days.
Yeah, plastic one.
Yeah, it's like plastic.
Gilded plastic.
Yeah, gilded plastic. And it was like for fairly kind of low-grade stuff, like, grade 5, chess runner-up at a particular Jewish school and all that kind of stuff.
Putting sphinxes in the tin.
But I was like, because I'm just so socially awkward, so I was like, you must be very proud of your genius kids, and then in my head going, having a plastic trophy on everyone wins a trophy day. Anyway, and it's like, let's sit down for lunch for Cholent, right? And I just sit down next to Pinchas's wife. Like, but there's a seat.
Yeah, that's all right.
There's a gap. There's a gap between us, right?
You weren't sitting on her lap, for God's sake.
Then they start having a coded conversation, because they don't want to bring it up. It's not like, oh my God, or whatever. So... the wife, I think it was the wife, said she goes, we haven't really decided like where everyone's sitting, have we, Pinchas? And Pinchas goes, no, we haven't. And goes, maybe. And then I'm repositioned. But then this is the thing that really annoys me, right? If it was like, okay, sit totally at the other end away from her, right? Or sit, whatever. All I had to do, I stood up and I was put opposite her. So apparently having the table between us, even though now I had a view of her.
Yes, that's...
Now if I was going to get... Like when I was just beside her, I couldn't see anything, but now it's like I'm seeing her gorgeous face.
Exactly. And touching her gorgeous feet under the table.
I can see
what I mean? I've seen the movie.
I can make it... And now, obviously, when you're opposite a woman...
Yes.
Like now I can see her even though she's sitting at the top. So what... It just seemed ridiculous. Anyway, I'm going to go...
But you weren't in the room alone with this Jewish woman.
I promise you this has happened. I've been in a conversation like with a Jewish woman and her husband. These like really religious. I don't want to... I'm talking about whatever, 2%. Right. I don't know exact statistics.
Yeah, he left the room.
Yeah, like where, you're casually in the thing, blah, 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 and you're talking whatever. And then the guy just happens to get distracted by talking to someone else, right? And then... I'm there, and the woman just goes, I'm going to have to go now. I couldn't finish.
Truly.
And I didn't care about her being oppressed under the patriarchy. It was more like I just got to the good part in my anecdote.
Yeah,
and he stepped on the punchline.
Stepped on it like a bug.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you for enlightening the whole of Australia.
I'm furious that my punchline's been stepped on because I was trying to be kind of charming to her because was trying to hit on her. No, not really. That was a joke.
God's sake.
That was
They'll
a
have
joke.
a new show on television soon. It won't be Mark Philippoussis and older women. It'll be John Safran and any women.
And women in shaitles.
Exactly.
That's the... and by the way, this is... You know, really, 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 really religious Jewish women wear wigs, shaitles. But the wig's incidental. Like what the thing is, you have to cover your head.
Yeah.
Or your original hair.
Can it be designer shaitel?
Yeah. Oh. So it's not like the Torah says you have to wear a wig. The Torah says if you're married... Oh, it's probably not even the Torah. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Right.
All the rabbis listening are like furious. Yeah. Like, oh, John,
for God's sake.
It's not the Torah. Whatever.
Yeah, right.
You got to cover your hair so other men don't find you attractive.
Yeah, I understand
then
that.
The way they weave around it is put on a wig.
How do I get on? Because I covered my head, you see, because there's nothing there. See, I'm walking around in a state of permanent disrespect. Anyway, that's all very exciting, and that saves us reading from the Jewish Times tonight.
Next, part 3 of our...
We're probably frightening him away.
If this is the first week you've listened to the show, you probably think there's like a theme every week. Like, oh, they talked about censorship all this week. That was quite good. I wonder what next week will be. Fishing. Before guests about fishing. No, it's just totally incidental. But next we're talking to Canadian filmmaker Debbie Melnyk about her film about Michael Moore, Manufacturing Descent.
Bond do roll with Office Boy from the album With Lasers.
Thank you, Father Bob. This is Triple J. I'm John Safran. We have a real-life Canadian in the studio.
Yes, I am.
Canadian filmmaker Debbie Melnyk. You're here for the Melbourne International Film Festival.
I am.
And you've got a cheeky little film.
A cheeky little film, it is.
A cheeky little film called Manufacturing Descent, where you deconstruct Michael Moore. And it's appropriate for the Melbourne International Film Festival because opening night, Sicko, Michael Moore's new film, and sort of bookending it a bit, is the, well, I guess we can say, the anti-Michael Moore film Manufacturing Descent.
Did Michael come for the premiere?
No, he didn't. And I can...
That's horrible.
But you know why he didn't?
Why?
And you'll like this. Maybe you can add this in when you do the DVD extras of the expanded thing. I might have heard about his demands for...
Emolument.
Yes. About exactly how many business class seats he required. By the way, that sounds like a fat joke. I didn't mean that.
No, you didn't mean that, did you? This is that offensive.
Yes. I mean, it was he required an entourage that was going to eat into the entire Melbourne International Film Festival budget. So it was like getting him over, and then it would all have to be just one projector, and us all sitting in the back lawn of someone's house, or. We could have run the mill. Anyway, why am I taking up time when we've got a real-life Canadian here who's come all the way from Canada just to be part of the Melbourne Film Festival experience? Now, okay, give us the blurb on Manufacturing Descent.
Well, the blurb... Actually, this is the first time I've been asked that. But the blurb on Manufacturing Descent is... We started out to do a biography about Michael Moore, and then we realized that we'd found some things out that we didn't know about, and we thought, this isn't exactly the Michael Moore that we set out to do a story on. Nevertheless, as documentarians, we always believe you should follow the journey. And so we decided, okay, we have to put some of these facts that we found out in our film. And instead of it being a straightforward biography, because in the end, Michael never does give us the interview we've requested after following him for 2.5 years, we decided to do a story about our search to try, or our struggle to get Michael to do an interview, as well as his life story and what he's done and how he makes documentaries.
As someone who's seen this film, you're either a very good con artist, or I believe you that you were sincere, that you were trying to make a fair film about him, and that it went on the slippery slope. Like, it does not come across... Because I know there's a lot of, like, anti-Michael Moore films where it's like their agenda is that they're
Republicans.
They're pro-Bush, or, they're pro-the war, and they don't like how Michael's against the war.
Right.
Your film what you're saying now comes across as sincere.
Yeah, well, I am. Trust me, if I was a con man or woman, if I was a con woman, I'd be able to make a lot more money, and I wouldn't be doing documentaries.
Now, what are some of the things that you uncovered that made you not happy?
Well, I think There were a couple of things. The first one was surprising. We'd gone to Flint a lot, Flint, Michigan, which is around a 4-hour drive from Toronto. So we spent a lot of time there, a lot of driving across borders.
And that's Michael's hometown.
Yes, it's Michael's hometown. And while we were there, we found out some amazing things. One was we talked to a woman who was an art director or a theater director, and she was doing a sort of a performance art piece on Michael Moore in Flint and how he's affected Flint. And they were going to do a whole section on how Michael had discovered in Roger and Me that a satellite truck had been stolen by an unemployed auto worker. And so they went to the ABC local affiliate, their American Broadcasting Company, and asked for this footage. And the news director said, well, no, that footage doesn't exist. And she says, well, why not? And he said, well, because it was made up. She said, so a satellite truck wasn't taken and stolen by an unemployed auto worker? And he said, no, it wasn't.
So in the context, this is his first film, Roger and Me, where Michael Moore goes to try to track down the head of General Motors.
Correct.
Roger Smith.
Roger Smith, yeah.
And ask him, and you've got to see how closing down the General Motors factory in Flint, Michigan has kind of devastated our town. And the premise of the film, he can never get to Roger Smith.
Right.
And there's lots of comedy within that.
Yes.
And so this satellite truck, was that part of it where it sort of implied that some sneaky things were going on?
Yeah, well,
to try to sort of, by perhaps General Motors, to try to stop the reporting of the
even
story.
worse than that, he was trying to show how devastated the economy was. So the satellite truck wasn't just stolen by anybody, it was stolen by an unemployed auto worker who'd lost a job. So there's a political context in there.
And so that just wasn't true. But
no, he'd hired his friend who worked for the local TV station to do a report, but it was a fake report.
In a feature movie, it'd be all right, but not in a documentary.
No.
The interesting thing about the film that you exposed, presumably, if you believe the people in the film, is that he actually did get interviews with Roger Smith. And if anyone who's seen the film, that kind of pulls the rug out from under it a bit, because the entire film is about how he can't get an interview with Roger Smith.
Yeah, and he did 2 interviews. One of them was at a shareholders meeting where it was more of a Q&A and a back and forth between the two of them. And he, and that was all actually written up in a magazine called Premier Magazine, which no one took any notice of because it came out like 5 months after the film came out. And then the other one was a year after that, which was a 15-minute sit-down interview with Roger Smith, which he just left on the cutting room floor.
Is it confusing for you with this film, because maybe when you made it, he was Michael Moore was seen as this untouchable icon, but sort of over the years people have like chipped away at him. So maybe people aren't as naive in 2007 like that. They go into a Michael Moore film and they say, he's probably fudging things a bit, but like, I know that.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean, and it's funny because I'm not one of these people, I suppose because I'm of a certain age, I'm not one of these people who blogged. I never blogged in my life until, actually it was near the end of this film. Sometimes I'd be looking up facts and I thought, every fact was different on the internet. I thought, I have to go back to the original source because I can't tell the truth from what I'm reading here. And so I think people blog more now, so they get information, not always correct information. But back then, people couldn't do that, so they never knew what the truth was. And yeah, I know what you mean. Some people are like, well, why didn't you know that? And to tell you the truth, I was a fan of Michael Moore's, but I wasn't obsessive. I was not a stalker saying, I have to find out everything about Michael Moore every time I see a film of his, because I didn't really care that much. I was just enjoyed his films as a documentarian, right? So things, but the other thing is people go, they all knew that, but they didn't know that he talked to Roger Smith twice. I mean, a lot of people are like, wow, I never knew that. Or a satellite truck scene was made up. So there are a couple of things that I think people just didn't realize, even right-wingers who are saying, we knew all that.
I thought what was interesting, Angle, I don't know if you meant this, was him being an example of the if you're an artist, it's almost by bent you're going to have an autocratic nature. Like you're going to have a vision, and you're going to want to pursue that vision. And it's not about sitting there in a room and getting everyone's input and everyone's equal. It's a meritocracy. It's and you're in charge and you think you've got the best idea, and then that's cool. Except artists are also the most likely to kind of have some pretense of having these kind of left leanings and these socialist leanings that sort of like go against that, and I thought that was interesting about your film.
Well, but the other thing is that not only, and I agree with the whole, yes, you're an artist, and that doesn't give you leeway to act like a jerk, though, but the other thing is that, Michael Moore presents himself in a certain way, and so we're like, well, we're not holding him up by any yardstick, we're holding him up by his yardstick, which is, I'm the common guy, I'm the average Joe in America, I'm just a schlub, I treat everyone the same, anyone can talk to me. But that's not necessarily true. That's a facade that Michael presents in order to sell his films.
But aren't you always going to break a few eggs along the way? So why did you trust that? Because to the type of people you get in the film, again, it's not like you get all these Republicans in to have a go at him.
No.
You get kind of previous collaborators of him to kind of dish the dirt. But how did you know it just wasn't like, this person, his nose is out of joint?
Right, yeah.
But like everyone who works with anyone, they're gonna start having fights and stuff. And who can you believe? Why do you? He said, she said. Why do you believe him as opposed to Michael Moore's version of events of the fight?
Well, we always had a couple of sources to back people up, and there were, trust me, there were a lot of interviews we left on the cutting room floor, not Michael Moore's interview, but with people whom I felt like they had agendas, and I just thought, I don't feel comfortable with this because I just feel like they're getting back at something or they're disgruntled former employees. But the people we did use, like Jim Musselman, who was an interview we did at the very end of the film.
And who was he?
Jim Musselman was what they called a Nader Raider, and he worked for Ralph Nader at the same time Michael was starting to do Roger and Me, and he actually got Michael a job with Ralph Nader, and he got him into all the different shareholders meetings, the Roger Smith General Motors shareholders meetings, and he was working with the grassroots movements in Flint at that time in the 1980s. And he, Michael was living with him and on the floor, he was living in an extra room in his place because he had nowhere to live. And, he was a really sincere person. He still is a sincere person. I think as a journalist, and that's what my background is, I think you start to talk to people and you realize whether they're telling the truth or not. Jim Musselman was someone who had held his story for 20 years, and everyone had wanted to talk to him. And he said, no. Finally, he said, okay, you know what? You're not coming from the right. You don't have an agenda. I'm willing to talk. And I really felt like he was the real deal. He still is. I mean, this guy now, he is a record producer. He does stuff with Bruce Springsteen and Bob Seger and teams them up with homeless musicians, and the money all goes to the homeless. I mean, the guy's still really doing good things. He's a decent human being. And so I believed him when he told me the story about Michael interviewing Roger Smith and Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader admitted it too, and I think Ralph Nader's a sincere person as well.
Now, the Ralph Nader thing was interesting because I'd forgotten, but in all that talk about whether Bush stole the election from Al Gore and in Florida, there's one other way to look at it, and it's like if Ralph Nader, who was an independent candidate, if he hadn't run, that would have got Al Gore over the line.
Yeah.
And for that election, Michael Moore campaigned for Ralph Nader.
Right.
So it's possibly a bridge too far to say Michael Moore's responsible for George Bush getting in the White House, but you can say Ralph Nader's responsible for getting George Bush in the White House, and Michael Moore supported him. Do you think Michael Moore's torn up about that?
Oh, I think he's absolutely torn up about that, and I think that's why he was giving Ralph Nader a hard time in 2004 when Ralph said he was going to run again. He's like, no one, and I was following Michael around on the Slacker Uprising tour that went to all the universities to get out the youth vote for the Democrats, and he's like, don't vote for Nader, don't vote for Nader. But at the same time, I have to say, it is a democracy, supposedly in America, and so, but yet they still refuse to have three parties. And I know that you guys don't have three parties here. We have three parties in Canada. But and I think it's important, to sort of follow your heart and for the long term as far as trying to get, if you really believe in a third party, then you may have to go through a few bad Republican presidents before you can actually get someone else running.
Now, I was watching your film and you're talking about how Michael Moore misrepresented that he couldn't get an interview with Roger Smith.
Right.
And I did think to myself, did you not do a similar sleight of hand, but in front of our very faces, about not being able to get access to Michael Moore? Because there are several points in the film where you seem to be having a long dialogue with Michael Moore, like jumping him at like a press conference or at some kind of do, and you have like a 5-minute back and forth about trying to organise the interview, which he says, no, I can't do an interview, I can't do an interview.
Right.
Why didn't you just spend those 5 minutes asking the questions you wanted to ask? Like, weren't you getting access to him? And isn't that shown in your very film?
Except that I never found out. But at that time when I was talking to him at the press conference, that was earlier on. That was like September of 2004. And a lot of this stuff I didn't find out until 2005 when I see. Yeah, the Musselman interview wasn't till 2006, and that to me was the key of the very important things that I would have said, hey, you got this interview.
I've been
you know
tricked
what I mean?
by the editing process, because you are right. At that point in the film, even though we as an audience know what's going on, you didn't necessarily at that point
I didn't know
that he was going to be so inaccessible that you should not be
wasting
your time.
I kept thinking that if I play my cards right, if I'm just pleasant and nice, that, he'll eventually come through and do it. I mean, we asked him up until, I think it was September 2006. Up until then we asked him, because he was in Toronto. So then we sent another email saying, hey, you're in Toronto, come on, we still have time to do it, we can edit it into the film. But no response.
Have you seen Sicko?
I have seen Sicko.
Did you there's a bit in Sicko, I liked it at the very start of the film, or near the start of the film, he's showing a list of 50 countries from best to worst when it comes to health systems. And, and America's really far down, like number 34 or whatever. And he's presenting this list from wherever it was, the World Health Organization, saying, because America's at number 37, this is why you should go along with the premise of my film, that America has a really bad health service. And then if anyone's seen the film, for the last 20 minutes of the film, he goes to Cuba and shows how good the Cuban health system is, and why can Cuba get it right, and da-da-da-da-da. But rewind to that list where America's number 34, and go down 2, and there's Cuba, 2 below America. So on the very list that he's showing, that he's saying we should use to trust him for why the American health system is so bad compared with Cuba. Cuba is below America. I know. I mean, that whole Cuba stunt, come on. I mean, that was a bit much, right? I mean, with the whole I'm confused. I'm confused by this stage with this film, because it's like there's a whole artistry compared to the politics and the morality behind the politics, and I don't know what to think anymore. It's all too confusing. I know. I mean, and then sometimes I like it when he's like, I've got to admit, when I heard that he just fudged all that stuff in Roger and Me, I on one level, I thought, oh, well, good on you. I just could not believe he was that audacious. And the other interesting thing was that was his first film. You can imagine if slowly but surely, you become some cynical lie or whatever. His absolute first film when he was a little guy, he just totally, I loved it. So good on you, Michael. I'm on your side.
But we presume, us old ones, that documentaries tell the truth.
Well, they're supposed to tell the truth, yes.
But then we have to test each documentary to see whether it is the truth.
Yeah, I mean, you do. Because the problem also is, fine, if you're going to lie to your audience, tell them you're lying. Then let them in on the secret. But don't just... Because to me, you lose the bond between the audience and the filmmaker.
I sort of like that game, because it teaches us that, we have to really watch out.
Yeah.
So I like how they're trying to fool us and trick us, and because it means we have to be awake. It means we can't just sit there and just take it all on in.
Yeah.
Now, how can I have this interview with you without telling you all the gossip I know about Michael Moore?
Well, I want to know all the...
Because it's like a different story, but it's totally in tone with yours.
Oh, really? Tell me. I want to know.
I recently... This sounds like I'm just...
No, go on,
name dropping or whatever.
No, name drop.
I was filming in America earlier this year, and my producer had worked with Michael Moore as a producer on both Bowling for Columbine and on his TV shows.
Who was that?
No names.
No names.
Ah, come on.
Are they going
to be listening in America?
No. No one downloads the podcast there. And he was telling me that he said the moment where he said, oh, I just have to stop working with this guy. It's just too much. It's unbearable. They'd done some interview with some local councillor or something like that, and apparently he'd failed to turn up to some important political meeting that he should have turned up to, but he didn't turn up. So Michael Moore wanted to do this whole thing about how this guy's just, he has no interest in what his job's meant to be. And then he somehow, either the guy said it himself or he lured out, and he talked about how he likes going fishing. So as soon as that happened, Michael Moore was like, oh, this is good. We'll do the whole interview, and the joke of the interview will be about how this guy he's not interested in turning up and doing his job, but he likes going fishing. So then my producer, and Michael's producer, Michael said, oh, this is good. We've got to make him look like he's just obsessed with going fishing. So even though he only said the sentence like once, like, I like going fishing, and who knows which context, it's like, how do we make out that like this guy's a real doofus and he's just obsessed with fishing? And one of the ways was Michael Moore wanted for the producer to go and find photos, like framed photos of like people fishing and fishers, so he could then film them as sort of close-ups and pretend all these pictures of fishers were in the guy's office. So Michael Moore could then do this interview with this guy, and then they could constantly cut to these close-ups of these fishers all over his office wall.
Funny.
Yeah, which was going to prove that this guy was obsessed with fishing instead of doing his job as a local councillor. Except, of course, he had and he said, and the producer, he goes, I was driving around all weekend, like going to like second-hand shops, going to op shops, trying to find these framed photos of fishers, and I just thought, has my life really come to this?
God, that's so wrong. That is just so wrong.
You know another Australian-connected
Michael
Moore story?
What?
In Fahrenheit 9/11, and when I watched it, I thought that there's a whole sequence in Fahrenheit 9/11 where it's all about the music that that the soldiers listen to when they're bombing the Iraqis.
Right.
And at first I thought, I've seen that somewhere before, and then I thought, oh, maybe either it's like, I guess it's an idea and soldiers actually do listen to music, so maybe I saw it in another documentary, but it's not really quite ripping it off. No, that's fine. And then I'm going, hang on. I think that's actually the exact same footage that was used, and the same songs and the same editing and everything like that as this Australian documentary that did that. And then I was thinking, the whole Fahrenheit 9/11 was made up of found footage, so you probably licensed it, and
archive.
that's cool, and there'd probably be a credit at the end and stuff like that, so that's fine. Then I met the Australian filmmaker. And I talked to him about it. I go, good on you. Like, you got your little Australian doco, you got it to be put into Fahrenheit 9/11.
That's great.
And he kind of blushed, and he said he'd tell me this if I promised never, for instance, to talk about it on the radio. And he said he was sitting there watching Fahrenheit 9/11, and he could not believe. He's like, his jaw dropped. Really? His film was in Fahrenheit 9/11, and he just had never got permission, and the only link was he goes, well, my lawyer is Michael Moore, but or whatever. Anyway, so then he, of course, complained. Michael Moore flew him over, like him and his wife, first class to New York to talk to him, and the guys
to sort out the lawsuit.
yeah, like he's going to talk to him and going, you got to let me use the footage. Or you're going, listen, I really agree with your politics, Michael Moore, but I just can't believe you did that. Like,
yeah,
and
that's wrong. We all have to pay.
Yeah, like and he's there going, no, and he's trying to manipulate him into going ahead with it all and stuff like that, and saying, listen, I'm trying to get Bush out of the. Out of office. So, like, really if you're going to make a big fuss about this, right? If you're going to like demand I pull it out of the film, like you're working for Bush, and then he said that he started getting religious and started sort of like talking about when he was. This is Michael Moore.
Right, I know. He's a staunch Catholic.
Yeah, started talking about. He said to this guy, he goes, when I was growing up, I thought I was going to be a Catholic priest, and that's what I really wanted to do. But then I don't think he quite said, God talked to me or whatever. But in a broad sense, God. Yeah. I found out that my mission was to change the world through these trees. So if you try to stop me from using your footage, it's like you're just going against the really.
Against God?
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty heavy to put on someone.
And also, apparently he ate 3 large bowls of spaghetti bolognese during the half-hour meeting about all this.
Oh, he was very upset, I'm sure. And I hope that this filmmaker ended up getting paid in the end.
Yes, he did. He did.
Thank
he did at
God.
the end.
I'm glad. He didn't do it just for higher purposes.
Yes. thank you very much for coming on in.
Well, thank you very much. This was fun.
Manufacturing Descent, it's playing at MIF. Is it going to be getting a wider release?
Yeah, it's going to be going on DVD, on DV1 in September, actually.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Deborah Melnyk.
Well, thank you,
from
John.
Canada.
Thank you, Father Bob.
Thank you. I don't get a word in it. Something for Kate with Moving Right Along from the album The Official Fiction, Jono.
Oh, by the way, if any editors of, for example, John Safran's Music Jamboree or John Safran versus God,
yes,
or any cameramen or directors are listening at the moment, no one's interested in you, nitpicking about any, fudges or re-edits in those particular programs. So don't bother contacting us.
Oh.
Joining us is an expert. He even has professor at the start of his name, Professor Weston Bate, who knows all about, he's a president of the Royal Historical Society of Victoria. And I want you to tell me about smoking, and this is why. I've got this photo of my papa, and he's wearing his Melbourne High blazer, and he's sitting next to his mother and father, and he's just got a cigarette. He's got like a cigarette in his hands, and it's like that's just par of the course. You're allowed to sit there in your Melbourne High posh blazer smoking a cigarette with your mum and dad next to you. Now, how long ago did it become like just socially unacceptable totally?
For children?
Yes, for children to smoke.
Oh, I think probably it depended on the parents as to whether they were allowed or not.
Grandparents were bad parents.
Yeah, but I think in some families, probably at your father's time, smoking wasn't regarded as anything as a bad habit. It was something that stimulated you and made you socially more acceptable, gave you something to do with your hands.
So, like, even at like age 16 and younger.
I wouldn't be surprised. Certainly, I remember in my school days that smoking was something that the brave and bold and behind the bushes did all the time.
Now, we once did talk back about smoking, and people were ringing in talking about how, I was in a hospital in 1978, and the doctors would just be standing out there in the waiting room having a puff, and we had another caller ringing in saying about how, I went to high school back in 1970, whatever, and, the Year 12 kids, they were allowed to smoke officially within the Year 12 room.
Mm. Yeah, it's changed very rapidly, I think, because of the importance of cancer and the understanding that lung cancer was very much a result of smoking. And I think the cigarette companies did all they could to stop this knowledge getting out. And the impact has been, mostly over the last 20 years or so. And now we've stopped smoking almost completely in restaurants, except for that 75% enclosed area that they're allowed to have.
Mm. And famous people like Paul Hogan and Graham Kennedy, they used to just, there was no stigma on their career at all to be doing Winnie Red commercials and so forth. Well, when did it sort of become socially unacceptable for like public figures to be that brash about their smoking?
I think when governments started to say you don't do this, and cigarette advertising was curtailed, and that sort of behaviour was frowned upon. Yeah, it's this, I'm not sure of the exact dates, but through from the 80s, the story has been, don't accept it, you're foolish, to start. And then we got, all those advertisements from the Quit campaign of showing what people's lungs would look like, or did look like. And that was pretty frightening. But it's interesting that in 2004-05, about 23% of adults in Australia were smokers, and 92% of them smoked daily. So there's still a big range of smoking. And I've been in the city this morning, and there are still trails of butts around the city, and there are those lovely congregations of the people who are the devotees of the cigarette.
Yes. Gathering around the butt container.
Like a church gathering.
Yes. Yes,
aren't there advantages to smoke? If you put the cancer thing to one side...
But you can't, according to the professor.
If you put the cancer thing to one side, are there like social benefits? Are there benefits to smoking? Like I used to always think, because I've never smoked. I'm not saying if someone saw me drunk back in 1983 at a thing that I never did or whatever. But broadly speaking, I've never smoked. But I used to regret it because, except for the whole cancer thing, because when I worked in an office, it was like people got to go downstairs and congregate and diss the boss, and it seemed to fulfil a good sociological function.
Yeah. Well, I think societies have these bonding practices, but drink is an even stronger one. When I was in the Air Force, I didn't drink and I didn't smoke, and in some ways, I was sort of out of the main swim, except I was very popular because we got cartons of American cigarettes at a very cheap rate, and I could pass them on to those who were absolute addicts.
You sold them, I assume. You weren't just bullied. It wasn't just politeness, and you gave them off.
Oh, no. It was something, I suppose, I was ingratiating myself. I think I helped to kill my elderly uncle in England by giving him what were they, Lucky Strikes or Pall Mall or some those stronger American cigarettes. Camels, yeah. Why would you call a cigarette Camel?
Because it tastes like... I know.
Yes, thank you.
My father was a great lover of Woodbine tobacco, which you rolled. In fact, he got cancer of the lung. The kiddies will laugh at this or yawn at it, but I mean, he ended up with cancer of the lung in Alfred Hospital in the cancer ward, and we used to go in and roll cigarettes for him to smoke in the bed.
Yeah. Well, how many...
Now, did I kill my father?
Yeah. Well, how many people have been incinerated by smoking in bed?
Yes.
There are great numbers of
More
them.
than have been incinerated by standing on a Roman Catholic church sanctuary next to the candles. I saw a bloke go up in flames one day, yes, spectacular. And we didn't have camera phones then either.
Goodness me.
But that's because I'm a closet smoker.
Yes.
But I've never smoked in public. I don't like public smoking. But
I say you like being a hypocrite, is what you say.
A hypocrite
that
is exactly.
Fits in perfectly well.
I'm waiting for you, or for some kiddie or from YouTube, to come up over the balcony with his bloody camera phone and take pictures and put it on the YouTube thing. Look at the filthy, hypocritical priest.
I'm in fact going to see how many clips I can get up on YouTube of you being a hypocrite.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what we're up against, Professor.
It's tough, isn't it?
It's purge. It's a purgative.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah. But smoking, it's interesting, the way in which, in the 19th century, the smokers were segregated.
As being elite?
As being... smoking being something that offended the women in particular.
Of course. Yeah,
and Woolmer's, a great heritage house in Tasmania, they put a smoking room out in the garden, and the men would disappear.
So when were women first allowed to smoke? When was it became socially acceptable?
It wasn't socially acceptable, I think, until the 20th century, probably.
And then they had those Virginia Slim ads where they try to tie it in with feminism. So if you're against women smoking and you don't want women to get cancer, it's because you're sexist.
Exactly.
And don't want to empower women.
But the thing was it not... excuse me, gentlemen, the ladies will be leaving while you smoke and take port.
Yes, yeah.
You see?
And the big moment in a dinner was when the toast for the Queen, you may now smoke.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you remember that?
The army days, formal dinners.
Yeah.
Oh, lots of lovely rules.
Oh, that was a big one.
Let's hope to God they toast the Queen early in the dinner, because then we can smoke.
Now, based on your knowledge of the smoking in the past, do you think there's any chance there's going to be some huge revival, or is it truly diminishing and it's just going to snuff out to nothing?
Yeah, I don't think there'll be a revival. But whether it snuffs out to nothing or not, I wouldn't think that'd happen.
Oh, public smoking we're talking about.
Yeah,
or
public smoking.
See, how will we know how many people are covertly smoking? Do we interested? We're not, are we?
Well, go to YouTube.
We're interested in you.
Well, no, but I mean, if public smoking is out, we all accept that. The MCG, you can't even now walk outside the football ground and smoke as you used to. You have to go far away.
Yeah.
And you haven't got time to go far away.
I think, I'm like a pro-smoking non-smoker. I'm very pro-smoking, but just not for myself.
This is
the whole
the professor
thing.
says the most important aspect of smoking is bonding.
Yes.
Now, you're going to deprive us blokes of even that.
No, not me. I'm on your side.
No, but
Professor.
I think that the stages at which we move in society are predicated on a whole lot of attitudes, and the one about passive smoking is now very strong.
Very strong.
And people are saying, look, it happened to me. I didn't smoke myself, but I've got lung cancer because people around me smoked. And for goodness sake, when I was a child, I can remember looking at those dog box smoking carriages on the trains from Mont Albert into the town, and they were, just absolutely full of smoke. Frightening.
But the war, surely, World War II, encouraged us, or even the Salvation Army, for God's sake.
Sure.
No one's taken a class action against the Salvation Army.
What did they do?
They handed out cigarettes to the diggers.
Yeah.
That was the big thing, and chewing gum. Now, who's going to sue the
this.
Salvation Army for that?
No. I think the First World War probably was the first big stimulus, because in that awful carnage in France, anything that somehow or other made you forget, gave you a sense of being somewhere else, because the smoking is a drug, and it stimulates you in ways that, you really need.
It revives
at those times.
Pleasant associations when you used to smoke at the pub in Oxford or something.
That could be.
Now, in the Vietnam War, however, smoking was a no-no, really, because we were in the jungle.
Yeah.
And people realised the Viet Cong, the other side, was finding out where we were because they could smell our smoke drifting in the jungle.
Yeah.
Listen to that. The kiddies never knew that, John Safran.
Thank you very much, Professor Weston Bate.
We could go on all night.
Well, this is the outcome of a session we had at the Royal Historical Society of Victoria, in which we encouraged people to come and talk about their smoking and their smoking experiences.
Yeah.
And, there were not
the
a lot.
The anecdotes were sensationally varied. Now, you're trying to kick him out and me, aren't you?
Maybe.
We'll go out for a smoke.
Let's go out for a smoke
Let's go out
now.
for a smoke, Professor, or pretend.
We will, but, a whole economy in many ways dependent upon it, and government revenue deeply. That's why it won't disappear too quickly.
If you're against smoking, you're a socialist, basically.
Yeah, of course.
An evil socialist. Thank you very much, Professor Weston Bate.
Pleasure, John.
Religious Song of the Week.
You're on.
Religious Song of the Week is Allen Ginsberg, track 7 from Ashes and Blues, Prayer Blues.
Oh, that's
Prayer
nice.
Blues.
Very demure.
Prayer Blues, 1973 February.
How unirritating was Allen Ginsberg?
Yeah, he says
says
so. He's been smoking
sarcastically.
too much.
You know Allen Ginsberg. How can we say back
The
announce
famous
Allen?
Allen Ginsberg.
How can we back announce him without talking about his membership of NAMBLA,
No, we couldn't at all.
the North American Man-Boy Love Association?
Oh, excuse me, I didn't know that.
Yeah. He believed that in the inalienable right of
Which is where
men and boys to be together.
where the term pedophile comes from the Greek. Love the child.
Can we thank all our guests?
Yes, thank you all our guests.
Simon Hackett.
And Mary Zournazi.
Thank you, Deborah Melnyk.
And also Professor Weston Bate.
I didn't understand what that interview was about. Like, when it started off, I was like I knew vaguely the cigarette. I didn't understand and then I didn't know how to wrap it up. We really need to get some, like, training. Chris Gadden, can you get me and Father Bob some training in how to wrap up interviews? Because we don't know how to do it.
Well, we're getting into my area when we're talking about the Great War and smoking in the midst of cannon fire. The kiddies are not interested. You see what I mean? That's what you're telling me. Even though they may have, when it comes to their Armageddon, John, what are they going to do with their hands? See what I mean?
Thank you, Father Bob.
A smokeless cigarette will be invented.
Thank you, Sir Paul, the Turk producer.
For God's
She's
sake.
no doubt got a hookah pipe out there at the moment.
Exactly. And have a look at my blog page, fatherbob.com.
And you can download on the podcast, and go to the message board, triplej.net.au/Safran, and just write stuff to try to wind me up.
And keep those phone cameras away from my balcony.